My credit card paid for my son's wedding. I wasn't invited. I found out on a Tuesday morning when my bank called about a $3,200 charge to a ballroom downtown. Over the past few weeks, they'd noticed my card being used to pay for a wedding, a dress, a luxury makeup studio, a full catering order, and a photographer whose package made the representative pause mid-sentence. Altogether, more than $20,000. The bank was polite about it. A woman my age doesn't usually spend like a bride, the bank said, so someone had to call and check. I approved the charge anyway. I knew exactly whose hands that card was in. There was no thief to catch. No stolen card to cancel. I didn't yet understand what I was approving. The venue was where my son Daniel was getting married that Saturday. At least, I thought he was. The last thing he'd told me was that they were just registering the marriage quietly at the courthouse. No ceremony, no guests, just the two of them. I sat at my kitchen table a long time after that call, staring at nothing in particular. By the end of the week, my son would lose far more than a wedding. Before we get into how, if you've ever held a family together while everyone else got to enjoy it, hit subscribe. On this channel, we tell the stories nobody else wants to sit through to the end. My name is Loretta Jackson. I'm 63 years old. For 36 years, I ran the front office at a public high school outside Savannah. I wasn't rich, and I wasn't anybody's idea of important. But I never missed a mortgage payment, a birthday, or a chance to show up for the people I loved. When my husband died 19 years ago, Daniel was 17. Everything I had became his. His tuition, his first apartment, the car still titled in my name because his credit hadn't caught up to him yet, and the $100,000 from his father's life insurance that I put into the consulting business he started 2 years ago. People used to tell me I spoiled him. I always said the same thing back. You only get one child. 2 years ago, he asked to keep one of my cards, just for emergencies. I trusted him. The charges stayed small. Gas, groceries, a dinner here and there. Eventually, I stopped looking. He was 36 years old. I figured if he needed it, he needed it. I'd only met Emily's parents a handful of times. Robert and Susan Carter owned a string of luxury furniture stores across the state. Beautiful home, country club, always polite, never quite warm. The first time Susan visited, she looked around my small living room a moment too long. Daniel told us you preferred a quieter lifestyle. I smiled. This house paid for his education. She laughed like I'd made a joke. I wasn't sure I had. When he called that afternoon, he sounded light, easy, the way he always sounded when he wanted me not to ask questions. We're just doing the courthouse thing, Mom. Nothing big. I know. We'll celebrate properly with you after. Afterward. Not before. Not together. Just afterward. Like an appointment he'd pencil me into once the real thing was finished. That night, I finally opened the banking app myself, for the first time in months, wanting to see it with my own eyes instead of hearing it read to me by a stranger. Florist, a cake designer, a hotel block the bank hadn't even mentioned, each charge dated, timed, small enough alone that I understood exactly how it had slipped past me for so long. Together with what the bank had already told me, the number climbed past $22,000. Every charge stacked so carefully under my nose that I almost admired the restraint it must have taken. I didn't call him. Every time I'd confronted Daniel before, he had a way of turning the conversation until I was the one apologizing. I wasn't walking into that again without the full picture first. I called Gloria, my trusted friend, to come over. She read the statements twice at my kitchen table, then looked up. Have you talked to him? Not yet. Why not? Because I don't know who's lying to who yet, and I'm not giving him the chance to decide the story before I do. There was a photograph on the side table while we talked. Daniel at 7, gap-toothed, holding up the first fish he'd ever caught, prouder than he'd ever be again about anything so simple. I kept looking at it instead of the statements. It was easier. Friday, the day before the wedding, I called the ballroom directly and asked for whoever was coordinating the Jackson Carter event. The coordinator mentioned, kindly, that the bride would be stopping by that afternoon to drop off place cards. I told her I'd be nearby too. I stood across the street and watched strangers carry white flowers through doors my money had opened. Then a silver SUV pulled into the lot, and Emily, Daniel's bride-to-be, stepped out, looking exhausted, the way brides look the day before everything is supposed to be perfect. She smiled when she saw me. Then the smile disappeared, the way a light goes out when you didn't realize it had been on. I didn't know you were coming today. Neither did I said. She went pale when I told her I hadn't been invited. Daniel said you didn't like big events anymore, that crowds still remind you of your husband. Something cold moved through me, slow and complete. I never said that to anyone. She called him right there in the parking lot. Where are you? With the photographer? Why? Your mother is standing outside the ballroom. A silence stretched too long. I can explain.
You can come explain it here, Emily said, and hung up.
If you think Daniel is about to lose more than a wedding in the next few minutes, subscribe and stay with me, because what happens when he walks through those doors is not the conversation he's rehearsed on the drive over. Daniel arrived 20 minutes later, already talking before his car door shut. Mom, why are you here? I held up my phone, because my bank wanted to know if I approved another charge. Emily crossed her arms. You told me she didn't want to come. I didn't want anyone fighting before the wedding, he said. So you erased me instead of telling the truth. He had no answer, and for the first time in his life, I watched him realize it. I handed him the statements. Every charge, every silence, every quiet decision made using my name. You said the card was for emergencies. I was going to pay it back. With what money, Daniel? Nothing. Just his jaw working like he was chewing on an answer that wouldn't come. Emily turned the pages one by one, her voice getting smaller with each. The florist. The photographer. Her hands started shaking. You paid for our entire wedding? No, I said quietly. I paid for it. He just forgot to ask. That's when Robert and Susan, the bride's parents, arrived, dressed for a rehearsal that wasn't happening anymore. Susan smiled first. Daniel told us you couldn't make it, before she understood what she'd walked into. Robert took the statements and read them twice, the way a man reads a contract before refusing to sign it. There has to be an explanation, he said, giving Daniel one last chance he hadn't earned. Nothing came out at all. You let your mother pay for a wedding she wasn't invited to, Robert said. It wasn't a question anymore. Emily slid the ring off her finger slowly, like she was giving herself time to change her mind, and finding she didn't want to. I spent a year planning a life with someone I don't know. Daniel reached for her hand. She stepped back. If you can lie to your own mother, nobody needed her to finish. I opened my banking app and froze the card. Every payment scheduled for Monday vanished instantly, quietly, the way I'd raised him to handle things that mattered. Then I said the part I hadn't planned out loud until the words were already leaving me. The car you drive is titled in my name. I need it back this weekend. The apartment lease renews through my signature every year, and it won't renew again. And the $100,000 from your father's insurance that I put into your business last spring was never a gift, whatever you told yourself to sleep at night. I'm calling it what it always legally was, a loan, due in full. He stared at me like I'd struck him. Mom, I'm not canceling your wedding, Daniel, I said. I'm canceling everything I gave a man I'm no longer sure exists. The wedding didn't happen that Saturday. Guests were told there'd been a family emergency. In a way, there had been. 3 weeks later, Daniel knocked on my door with the car keys, a repayment schedule, and a handwritten letter. I don't expect forgiveness, it read. I just wanted to stop pretending I deserved it. I'm proud of you for finally telling the truth, I told him. Does that mean? No. Trust takes years. You taught me that yourself. Emily wrote to me too, months later, thanking me for showing her who Daniel was before she married him instead of after. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't the wedding that happens, she wrote. It's the one that doesn't. Daniel finished paying every dollar back eventually. Not because I demanded it, but because he'd finally learned what honest people do. We still have Sunday dinners. Healing came slowly, the way most things worth keeping usually do.
People ask if I regret approving that first charge. I don't. If the bank hadn't called, I might never have learned what my son had quietly become, or what I was still capable of taking back. Money can always be replaced. Trust can't. And neither can what you've already given to someone who never earned the right to keep it. If you enjoy stories about dignity, boundaries, and the people we thought we knew best, subscribe to The Final Chapter. I'll see you in the next one.